Hello, I am Kwadwo Obeng, a Ghanaian, educated in Ghana and the United States. I was born into a religion, Christianity, and specifically Jehovah's Witness. As I did some research on religion, I came to find out that the three Judeo-Christian Islamic religions have done a lot of harm to Africans. The research led me to write this book. We are all Africans, exposing the negative influence of the Judeo-Christian Islamic religions on Africans. Basically, what we have learned in these three religions about our origin, our history, and the many horrible events like slavery on us have all been traced to the teachings of these three religions. Basically based on the stuff material that so-called Moses wrote. They've caused us a lot of harm. We are all Africans suggests that we are not descendants of Adam, but we are all descendants of Africans who lived on this continent for more than 200,000 years, in biological terms as Homo sapiens. Every human being who has lived on this earth is a descendant of Africans. And this is based on scientific research. Research on paleontology, anthropology, mitochondrial DNA, the Y chromosome, and radiometric dating that dates actual fossils and give us timelines. The research disputes or dismisses the contention that we are descendants of some mythical person called Adam, who was created in Iraq, Mesopotamia, 6,000 years ago. That cannot possibly be true, because there is no evidence of this mythical person Adam and his wife Eve. But all the evidence proves that everybody living today is an African. The hatred that African people have experienced, all based on the stories of the Bible and the Quran and the Jewish book Tanakh, of which its companion is the Babylonian Talmud. This book dismisses the story that we have inherited sin from Adam, and that we are supposed to accept Jesus as our Messiah or Muhammad as our prophet. No, Jesus could not possibly redeem us from sin. The concept of sin is contrived. There is no such thing as sin. The book goes into detail to show how African people could never be sinners. We have been deceived, and we are paying tremendous amount of money for redemption of sin. We look at the proliferation of churches all over Africa. All they do is collect money from us because we are trying to buy our way into some mythical heaven. This book disproves that. After writing this book, I decided to dismiss the story we've been told about how African people contributed to slave trade. As a matter of fact, all we know about the slave trade of African people is from books that European authors, white people, have written for us. This is still being taught in our universities. Our university professors, so-called PhD holders, should know better. There is an African version of this story. This book, The Indictment of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, for spiritual, cultural, economic, and human genocide, is based on true African history. Our history, the history of slavery of African people, started more than 2,000 years ago. Actually, 2,500 years ago. This book proves that what we've been told, that Africans were participants of this slave trade is not completely true. They have ignored exposing to us or teaching us the slave trade that began with the Israelites or the Canaanite people was based on scripture or commanded by a god. That was false. It was simply for land capture, genocide of African people. And then that slave trade was followed by the Arab slave trade of African people in North Africa, East Africa, and then European slave trade. Europeans were also buying people from Arabs in Europe during the 1400s. That is not taught in our schools. The next slave trade was again by the Arabs in conjunction with Jews, and of course some African heads, leaders also participated in it. This is what is now generally taught as the transatlantic slave trade. All the slave trades together have caused the deaths of more than 300 million Africans. This slave trade, especially the transatlantic slave trade, was the basis for the development of European and American civilization. Many people were transported from here to South America, and it goes through what the Africans who were transported there, what they did, not necessarily the hard work they put in on the plantations, but the suffering, the torture, the rapes, the killings, and also the freedom fights that the Africans had to engage in so they could acquire some form of independence, some peace of mind. It covers all the insurrections in the various islands in the Caribbean and also in South America, and it culminates with what Africans who were sent to North America, particularly the United States, endured. African people have suffered a lot under these religions. All the religions participated on all these slave trades. After completing the indictment book, I asked myself that question, so what now? Now that we know the details of the slave trade, what now? Because the slave trade is what promoted or developed the American industries that generated a lot of wealth for that country and also for the European countries. The only sensible thing that came to mind is that we need some form of preparation. So I decided to write some chapters on reparations. And those chapters ended up with this book, only pertaining to the United States. America's 202 trillion slavery debt, or the moral and legal basis for that claim, to demand reparation, restitution, compensation for the enslavement of Africans in the Americas. These are the books so far that I've written. And the information in these books is what this channel is going to promote. We'll go through all the chapters of the books. So we are preparing and setting up so that we can give you all the details as described here. The next thing I did was to put together this video called Infiase. Questions arise as to how did life begin on this planet. From the religious point of view, they say some gods created, or one God created us, and that God has so many different names. And all life on the planet in 6 days, creative days. Some say 24 hours. But that 24 hours is impossible considering all the material on this planet and also in the skies above, in the universe, the stars, the galaxies out there, and possibly multiple universes, or they call multiverse. But how did life start on Earth? That is the question. So, since religion does not provide us the answer, we have to go to science. So using science, or many branches of science, we have this video called Infiase. Infiase is a tree word or a Akan word for beginning or origin. We'll bring you details from this video. It's about 3.5 hours long, but it goes into a lot of detail. It also touches on African culture, our practices. But since I'm Ghanaian, I focus on the Ghanaian culture and then some of our customs. To disprove that Africans have had spirituality for hundreds of thousands of years before Christianity and Islam were visited and forced upon us. So stay tuned. We'll bring you a lot more material, and material you will enjoy. And subscribe to the channel, because all that information will be here. Thank you for listening.